Walking into a supplement store or even just scrolling through a fitness site online, it feels a bit like stepping into a bizarre alternate dimension.
Yeah, it really does.
You are instantly hit with these massive neon tubs and labels screaming in all caps about like cellular explosions or anabolic matrix technology. And the price tags, frankly, require a small mortgage.
Yeah.
It's sensory overload by design.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate irony of the supplement world, really. The industry basically thrives on selling you the newest, most complex, supposedly revolutionary compound every 6 months.
Right.
And the science backing up those screaming labels is usually incredibly thin. That is, assuming it even exists at all. But hiding behind all those neon lightning bolts and aggressive marketing campaigns is this single, genuinely boring-looking white powder.
Just a basic white powder.
Yeah, and it actually defies the entire fitness industry's business model because that one plain white powder you're talking about has more robust, peer-reviewed data behind it than almost anything else on the market.
And that is exactly what we are focusing our deep dive on today. We are cutting through, decades of gym bro mythology to uncover the actual evidence-based truth about creatine.
It's about time, honestly.
We've got our hands on a fantastic piece of source material to guide us. It's a comprehensive guide published in May 2026 by Laurent Fabian from Ingredientsage titled Creatine Suff, a comprehensive guide to benefits, forms, dosing, and safety.
Such a great breakdown.
It really is. And what makes this specific guide so incredibly valuable is that it synthesizes the absolute latest, most rigorous meta-analyses published all the way through 2025 and 2026.
Right. It's a massive aggregation of data. We aren't just looking at, one or two isolated studies. We are looking at the consensus of the entire global scientific community over decades of testing. And it's updated with the absolute cutting-edge findings from this year.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how to buy or take creatine, you first have to understand the surprising biology of what it actually does in your cells.
Yeah, that cellular mechanism is everything.
Before we get into scoops and shaker bottles, we really have to look at the cellular engine room. Like, what is actually happening when you ingest this stuff?
So to understand the mechanism, you have to understand a molecule called ATP. That's adenosine triphosphate.
Okay, ATP.
Right. ATP is the fundamental energy currency of your cells. Whenever your body does anything demanding, whether that's a heavy deadlift, a 50-meter sprint, or even just intensely focusing on a complex task, your cells break a phosphate bond off of that ATP molecule to release energy.
Yeah.
And when it breaks, that ATP becomes ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. It's essentially spent energy.
So if I'm picturing this, ATP is like a cell's quick burn fuel, or like an emergency battery pack. It gives you this massive burst of energy to lift something heavy, but that battery drains almost instantly, like literally in seconds.
That's a great way to conceptualize it. Yeah, your muscle cells only store enough ATP for a few seconds of maximal effort.
Just a few seconds.
Yeah, and once that battery is drained, your power drops off a cliff. Your muscle just wants to stall. And this is exactly where creatine enters the picture. See, your body stores creatine in the muscles as phosphocreatine.
Okay.
So when that ATP battery drains and becomes ADP, the phosphocreatine rushes in and donates its phosphate molecule. It instantly turns the spent ADP back into fresh, usable ATP.
Oh, I see. So creatine is essentially the rapid reload mechanism. It's like a portable power bank plugged into that battery, constantly trying to recharge the cell while you are right in the middle of a heavy lift or a sprint. It keeps the power grid online when it's supposed to fail.
Exactly. It extends the capacity of your cellular power grid during high-intensity, short-duration demands. And because that biological mechanism is so incredibly effective, the supplement industry has spent the last 2 decades trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right. They want to sell you a new and improved version of that power bank.
Exactly.
Which perfectly explains why the source material lists half a dozen different chemical forms of creatine currently sitting on store shelves. You have standard creatine monohydrate, which has been around forever.
The classic.
Yeah. But then you look at the premium shelves and you see creatine hydrochloride, or HCl. You see crealkaline, which claims to be a buffered creatine. There's creatine malate, citrate, nitrate, and even magnesium chelate. It seriously reads like a graduate-level chemistry syllabus.
It does. And every single one of those alternative forms comes with a sophisticated marketing campaign explaining why it's, biologically superior to the basic monohydrate.
Right. Wait, these alternative forms claim to offer better solubility and less GI distress. Shouldn't we be upgrading to those instead of sticking to basic monohydrate? I mean, if I have the budget for a premium product, Why wouldn't I buy the advanced version?
Well, what's fascinating here is that when you look at the biological mechanisms in the head-to-head data, those premium claims completely fall apart.
Really? Completely.
Yeah, let's take the better solubility argument. It is chemically true that something like creatine HCl dissolves more easily in a glass of water than monohydrate does.
Okay, so no clumps at the bottom of the shaker.
Right. But solubility in a glass does not dictate bioavailability in the human body.
Wait, so dissolving perfectly in my shaker bottle doesn't mean it's actually getting into my muscle tissue any faster?
Precisely. Creatine monohydrate is already nearly 100% bioavailable. Once it passes through your digestive tract, your body absorbs almost all of it. You mathematically cannot improve upon near perfect absorption.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, so the alternative forms often rely on indirect endpoints to sell their product. They'll measure how fast it dissolves in liquid and aggressively market that as faster absorption, heavily implying that it leads to better muscle growth.
But it doesn't.
No. The 2025 and 2026 meta-analyses are definitive. When you put these expensive alternative forms in a direct head-to-head clinical trial against basic monohydrate measuring actual strength output and actual lean mass gains, the shiny new forms consistently fail to beat the original.
Wow. So it's just an illusion of optimization? They're fixing a problem that doesn't actually exist biologically?
It is entirely an illusion. Because of its nearly 100% bioavailability, its predictable chemical stability, and the sheer overwhelming volume of safety and efficacy data, creatine monohydrate remains the undisputed gold standard.
That's wild.
It's the ultimate anti-marketing reality. The cheapest, most basic, unglamorous version is scientifically the best one.
So we know the battery metaphor, and we know that monohydrate is the best charger to buy. But what happens when we actually max out that cellular power grid? Because I think this is where the conversation usually hits a mental wall for most people.
How do you mean?
Well, the second someone hears the word creatine, they immediately picture a massive, veins-popping competitive bodybuilder aggressively grunting in a mirror.
Oh, yeah. It's an incredibly stubborn stereotype, and honestly, it limits so many people from utilizing a highly effective tool. Let's establish the physical baseline first.
Okay.
The most recent data confirms that when you pair consistent creatine saturation with resistance training, you see highly reliable improvements in maximal strength, peak power generation, and lean mass accrual.
So you can lift more weight, and because you lift more weight, you build more muscle over time?
Yes, but the key takeaway from the latest research isn't about elite powerlifters. It's about the broad, universal applicability of that extra power capacity. The data demonstrates robust benefits across incredibly diverse populations.
Not just gym bros.
Exactly. We are seeing significant positive outcomes in young adults and middle-aged weekend warriors, and crucially, in aging adults.
Oh, wow. Aging adult.
Yes. Think about it. For someone in their 70s, a rapid reload mechanism for their muscle cells might not mean bench pressing 300 pounds. It might mean having the explosive leg power to catch themselves when they trip, preventing a devastating fall. It helps maintain basic strength and physical independence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the 2026 guide doesn't stop at muscle tissue. It pivots and it looks upward, directly at the brain. And I think this specific frontier is going to fundamentally change how the general public views this powder.
It's a huge shift in the science.
We're looking at emerging, documented cognitive and metabolic benefits, particularly for individuals dealing with sleep deprivation.
Yeah, and if we rely on that biological mechanism we just mapped out, the ATP power grid, this cognitive pivot makes absolute perfect sense.
How so?
Well, the human brain is an intensely energy-demanding organ. It accounts for about 20% of your body's entire resting energy expenditure.
20%, just sitting there.
Exactly. Every single time a neuron fires, every time your brain clears out cellular waste, it is burning through ATP.
So the brain has its own battery packs that it's constantly draining.
Yes. And when your brain is under severe metabolic stress, say, from acute sleep deprivation, its ability to naturally regenerate that ATP falls behind. The battery is draining faster than your body can naturally recharge it. The emerging research strongly suggests that by supplementing with creatine, you are increasing the phosphocreatine stores across the blood-brain barrier. You are giving your brain that exact same portable power bank that your biceps use.
Think about what that actually means for a second. Think about that 3 p.m. brain fog when you're staring at a complex spreadsheet at work, running on 4 hours of sleep. Your brain is literally out of ATP.
Yep.
It's stalling.
Yeah, it's hitting a wall.
And creatine is theoretically stepping in to donate that missing energy bond to your neurons.
That's the mechanism at work. Now, the cognitive data is still evolving, and it is a bit more nuanced than the decades of established muscle research, but the trajectory is clear. Providing an energy buffer for your brain during periods of acute exhaustion or cognitive stress is a massive leap forward.
So we are moving from a purely physical enhancement to a neurological one.
Exactly.
It's a cognitive buffer for the chronically exhausted. That is huge. So seeing all of this, the strength preservation for aging adults, the lean mass for athletes, and this incredibly compelling brain battery research, the immediate practical question is how to actually get this into your system.
Right, the protocol.
Because if you decide to buy a tub of monohydrate and you read the back of the label or you search for advice online, you are instantly paralyzed by conflicting instructions.
Oh, the arguments over daily protocols are almost as fierce as the arguments over which form to buy.
So let's settle the biggest debate. How do I get my internal batteries fully charged? Because you buy a tub, and the manufacturer's label aggressively tells you to do a loading phase. They tell you to take 20 grams a day, sometimes 25 grams, for the first week. Is that famous loading phase a biological necessity or just a trick to make you run out of product faster?
It's not a biological requirement at all. It's simply a matter of speed.
Okay, so how does it work?
There are basically two scientifically valid protocols to reach cellular saturation. The first is that loading strategy you mentioned. The clinical formula is about 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, which averages out to roughly 20 grams for most people, split into multiple doses over 5 to 7 days.
Right.
After that week, you drop down to a steady maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams per day.
Sticking with our metaphor, taking 20 grams a day is like plugging your phone directly into a high-voltage wall charger.
Yeah.
You are forcing the battery to 100% capacity as fast as humanly possible.
Yes, you achieve maximum saturation in about a week. The alternative is the non-loading strategy. This is where you completely ignore the massive initial doses and simply take 3 to 5 grams every single day from day one.
Which would be like putting your phone on a slow, steady trickle charger.
Exactly. Using the 3 to 5 gram daily trickle charge, you achieve the exact same 100% cellular saturation. It just takes a little longer, typically about 2 to 4 minutes instead of 1 week. But here's the critical point. Once that battery is fully charged, the long-term physical and cognitive benefits are completely identical.
Wait. If taking 3 to 5 grams a day gets you to the exact same finish line, why does the supplement industry so heavily push the 20-gram loading phase on the packaging? Is there an actual metabolic advantage to doing it in 5 days, or is it just a way to make you empty the tub 4 times faster so you have to buy a replacement?
Honestly, it's a combination of impatience and commerce. For an elite athlete who has a competition in 10 days, that rapid saturation might actually matter. But for the average person, there is absolutely no need to rush.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, plugging into that high-voltage wall charger comes with a significant drawback. Pushing 20 grams of creatine through your digestive tract in a single day is notorious for causing intense gastrointestinal distress.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Your stomach often just can't handle the load. For the vast majority of people, taking the steady 3 to 5 grams a day is dramatically more comfortable, highly effective, and much cheaper in the long run.
That makes perfect sense. So we're taking the 3 to 5 gram scenic route. That reframes how we should think about the next major source of confusion, which is timing.
The post-workout window panic.
Yes, I remember guys in the gym aggressively chugging their shaker bottles the literal second they dropped their last set of dumbbells. Absolutely panicked that they were missing the anabolic window. Do I need to aggressively chug creatine the second my workout ends?
The short answer is no. The expert consensus clarifies that relentless daily consistency is infinitely more important than micromanaging your timing. You are managing a reservoir, not a fleeting window.
Okay, so the reservoir is just always full.
Right. Now, to be perfectly granular with the data, some analyses do suggest there is a marginally greater muscle uptake when creatine is consumed immediately post-exercise, specifically alongside carbohydrates or protein, due to an insulin spike.
But is that marginal uptake actually moving the needle on your physical results?
Practically speaking, no. The difference is so microscopic that it should not dictate your daily routine. If mixing it into a post-workout shake is easy for you, do it. But if you prefer stirring it into your morning oatmeal or a glass of water before bed, you are still going to fully saturate those cells.
Just get it in your system.
Exactly. Do not let the stress of perfect timing derail your daily consistency.
Speaking of mixing it in the morning, what about the great coffee debate? Doesn't caffeine cancel out creatine? People are terrified to mix their morning espresso with their monohydrate powder. Do they actually neutralize each other?
This is a textbook example of how early preliminary science can mutate into permanent internet lore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the late 90s and early 2000s, a few small studies suggested that high doses of caffeine might interfere with muscle relaxation times, potentially blunting some of creatine's explosive effects.
So that's where it started.
Right. But scientific inquiry is an iterative process. As researchers conducted larger, much more rigorous analyses over the subsequent 2 decades, they found no consistent physiological antagonism between the two compounds.
So my morning coffee is not destroying my cellular power grid.
Not at all. Synthesizing the 2026 evidence, concurrent use is perfectly safe and your muscles will still reach full saturation.
That's a relief.
The only real caveat here is digestive. Both caffeine and creatine can individually act as mild laxatives or cause GI distress in sensitive individuals. Taking them simultaneously on an empty stomach might cause cramping.
Oh, okay.
So it's a matter of personal tolerance. If taking them together upsets your stomach, space them out. If you feel fine, you are fine.
Okay, so the protocol is beautifully simple. 3 to 5 grams of basic monohydrate taken whenever is convenient, with or without coffee.
Yeah.
But if you are going to commit to ingesting a manufactured white powder every single day for years on end, you have to be unequivocally certain it's safe for your internal organs.
Absolutely.
Which takes us to arguably the most persistent fear surrounding this topic, and that's kidney damage.
The kidney damage myth is incredibly stubborn, but it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of a routine blood test.
How so?
When your muscle cells burn through creatine, the natural byproduct of that process is a waste molecule called creatinine. Your kidneys filter that creatinine out of your blood and pass it into your urine.
Right, and when a doctor wants to check if your kidneys are failing, they look at the creatinine levels in your blood. If the levels are high, they assume the kidney filter is broken.
Exactly. But here's the biological catch. If you are supplementing with exogenous creatine every day, your muscles are naturally going to produce more creatinine waste. Your blood levels of creatinine will rise.
Oh, I see where this is going.
It isn't because your kidney filter is broken. It's simply because you are putting more material through a perfectly healthy filter. It's a false positive on a standard blood test.
That is fascinating. So the test looks bad, but the organ is actually functioning perfectly.
Precisely. Let's be definitive based on the extensive longitudinal data up through 2026. For healthy adults, standard daily dosing of creatine for extended periods is highly safe. There is zero evidence that it damages healthy renal tissue.
So no kidney damage for healthy people.
Right. The only common side effect is a slight transient increase in water weight as the muscle cells pull in extra hydration alongside the creatine.
But the crucial distinction there is healthy adults, right? What if someone already has compromised kidneys?
That is a non-negotiable boundary. If an individual has pre-existing kidney disease, diagnosed renal impairment, or if they are taking nephrotoxic medications, drugs that are inherently hard on the kidneys, they absolutely must seek medical supervision before starting creatine.
Because their filter is actually broken.
Right. You are asking your kidneys to process extra waste, and if the filter is genuinely damaged, you need a physician to monitor that load. But for the general healthy population, the fear of kidney damage is entirely unfounded.
So what does this all mean when you're standing in the supplement aisle looking at 50 different brands? They're all legally allowed to print whatever they want on the label because the FDA doesn't strictly regulate these products before they go to market. How do you protect yourself from buying expensive, contaminated chalk?
Our source material outlines a rigorous consumer checklist to navigate exactly this problem. Because the FDA largely regulates supplements post-market, the burden of verification falls entirely on you, the consumer.
Which is terrifying.
It is. You must know how to identify the legal loopholes companies use. The biggest red flag to avoid is anything labeled as a proprietary blend or like a muscle matrix.
Let's drill down on that. How does the proprietary blend loophole actually work to scam the buyer?
Under current labeling laws, a manufacturer has to list the ingredients in their product. But if they group several ingredients together into a trademarked blend, they only have to list the total weight of the blend, not the individual ratios.
Oh.
Yeah. This allows a practice called pixie dusting. A company might formulate a 5-gram anabolic cell matrix, but legally, 4.9 grams of that matrix could be dirt cheap, maltodextrin, literally just sugar filler, and only 0.1 grams is actual creatine.
That is incredibly deceptive.
They get to put contains creatine on the front of the tub, and you have absolutely no idea that you are being severely underdosed.
They use the blend to hide the fact that they are stripping out the expensive active ingredients. So absolute transparency on the label is non-negotiable.
It is the only way to protect your wallet. You must verify that the serving size explicitly lists 3 to 5 grams of pure creatine monohydrate with no hidden ratios.
Okay, transparent label. What else?
The ultimate green flag you should look for is third-party testing, batch numbers, and clean room certifications. Look for a label from an independent lab like NSF Certified for Sport or Informed Choice.
What's that do?
This proves that an outside entity took that specific batch into a lab, tested it, and verified that what is printed on the label is exactly what is inside the tub, with no heavy metals or banned substances. Oh, and look for transparent return policies and accurate labeling over exaggerated claims.
Okay, let's do a rapid-fire summary to lock all this in, because we have taken a deep dive into some serious cellular biology today. If you're listening to this and want to apply the absolute latest 2026 science to your routine tomorrow, creatine monohydrate is the undisputed king.
Absolutely.
Ignore the expensive, supposedly soluble alternative forms. A steady trickle charge of 3 to 5 grams a day gets the job done perfectly. You do not need to subject your stomach to a massive 20-gram loading phase. Daily consistency completely overrides the stress of perfect post-workout timing.
Spot on.
It is demonstrably safe for healthy kidneys. And most importantly, the benefits extend far beyond lifting heavy things. It is potentially acting as a vital, rapid reload energy buffer for your exhausted brain.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it underscores that scientific knowledge is only valuable when it is applied responsibly. The most optimized, evidence-based protocol in the world will fail if you ignore the biological fundamentals.
Like what?
Well, because creatine draws water into your cells, adequate daily hydration is absolutely non-negotiable when taking this supplement. And as we just broke down, demanding third-party testing and quality sourcing is how you ensure that the science we discussed actually matches the powder you swallow.
It truly is a masterclass in ignoring the neon-colored noise and trusting the boring, reliable data. But before we wrap up today, there is one thought stemming from the sleep deprivation research that I just can't shake.
What's that?
Since the 1990s, we have viewed creatine strictly through the lens of a sports supplement. It belongs in a gym bag. But if the emerging data continues on this trajectory, if this incredibly cheap, safe powder functions as an essential rapid reload energy buffer for stalling brain cells in sleep-deprived individuals, could this eventually become a standard, universally recommended daily tool for high-stress, non-athletic professions?
It's a fascinating question.
Are we looking at a near future where emergency room doctors on hour 20 of a chaotic shift, or commercial airline pilots navigating complex weather systems, or even just utterly exhausted parents of newborns are taking their daily dose of monohydrate not to build physical muscle, but to forge mental resilience? Could the ultimate future of creatine be less about physical muscle and more about mental resilience?
That really changes the paradigm.
It is something to seriously think about the next time you see one of those absurdly aggressive fitness labels. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you read on the back of the bottle, and we'll catch you next time.